Shalom and welcome back to the Light to the Nations channel. It's a real beracha, a real blessing for me to be once again with you, sharing the light, sharing the truth of YaHuWaH, that is His Word, His Devar. In this video, I want to continue with the part number 13 of the study of the last days. As you remember, in this series we are building together a timeline with the sequence of events, the chronology of events of the end times. And not only that, we are also identifying the different signs that are going to help us to understand when those events are going to happen in our days. It's been an amazing journey so far with these 12 parts, identifying the different keys in the Devar of YaHuWaH that has been helping us to open our understanding to the timeline of the end times. And as you remember, in the last 3 videos we did a parenthesis, we did a stop basically to talk of the meaning of some of the prophecies. We didn't review in details the timeline, but this stop was very important in order to review in great details the real meaning of this important sign, these important prophecies according to Sefer Hazon, the book of Revelation chapter 12. Understanding directly from the Devar of YaHuWaH what's the real meaning of this sign in the Shemayim of the woman clad with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and with the crown of 12 stars over her head. And also to understand the real identity of this woman. It was an amazing revelation that I was sharing with you directly and only reading the Devar of YaHuWaH. That's the only way that as I have been sharing with you throughout all this series, that we need to understand the prophecies on the scripture. We need to let the scripture to speak by itself, and we need to use the principles that I was sharing with you in the first 2 videos of this series, and especially the Ruach of Nebuah, the spirit of prophecy, that is the testimony of Yahushua HaMashiach. So in this video, what I want to share with you is basically to resume and to take again the analysis of the timeline of the end times. And I want to do it with an important question, and this question is, where are we today? Where are we today in this timeline? That's the question that I want to share with you today. Just by reading the Devar of YaHuWaH, that we can understand where we are today in these events that are already happening in our days. And there are, as we know and as we have been seeing throughout this series, many other events are going to happen, are going to become true in our days. So as always, my invitation is that you take your scripture, you take a piece of paper and a pen, and take as much as possible, as much notes as possible throughout this series, this study. Also keep in mind all the keys that we have been reviewing throughout the different videos of this series, because those are the ones that are helping us to understand what we're going to review today. And also, if you are this is the first time that you are checking this video or this series, my invitation is that you review and study this series from the part number 1 onward. Why is that? Because we have been going little by little building this timeline together, and if you skip the previous part, it's going to be difficult for you to understand what we are discussing now. So my invitation for you, I know that it's a long study, but my invitation anyways for you is that you start from part 1 until the last one. So let's move on, and the first thing that I want to share with you is the timeline. It's the last timeline that we were reviewing in the previous videos. As you can see, we have been adding more information throughout this 12th last part of the series, just to understand the different prophecies in the book of Hazon with the different seals, the 7 seals. Also the prophecies of YaHuWaH according to the book of Matthew chapter 24. Also an important information about the restrainer Michael, the messenger Michael, and the big fight that is going to happen in the Shemaim, in the heaven, according to the prophecy in the book of Revelation chapter 12, and how this is amazingly connected with the appearance of the first beast and the second beast, and how this is also connected to the this period of time that is referred in the scripture as the great distress, the great tribulation. That is the same is called the time of Jacob distress. And as we saw in the previous part, this period of time will last 1260 days, that is equal to 42 months, and this is equal to 3.5 years. Okay, and it's exactly, and this is very important to highlight, it's exactly during this period of time of the Great Tribulation that Jerusalem is going to be under the dominion of the nations for the same period of time. It's going to be exactly the same period of time that the 2 witnesses are going to provide their testimony in Jerusalem during this period of time. It's during this period of time that the system of the beast is going to be ruling the world during the same period of time. And it's during the same period of time that the woman is going to be protected in the wilderness. And as we saw in the last video, this woman is Jerusalem, is the New Jerusalem, and specifically are the inhabitants of the New Jerusalem that we don't know yet who is going to be that people. And we also saw that it's going to be the remnant of this woman, because the New Jerusalem is the mother of us all, is the remnant of the New Jerusalem, those that are keeping the mitzvot, the commandments of YaHuWaH, and also keeping the emunah, the belief in Yahushua HaMashiach. Those ones are going to be persecuted and are going to go through the refinement of the Great Tribulation. And after that, as we saw, it's going to happen the 6 seals with the different prophecies about the signs on the sun and the moon being darkened, and also the stars falling to the earth. The same thing that we saw in the prophecy of YaHuWaH happening, this amazing and great earthquake on the earth, with the thunders, the noises, and the lightnings and earthquakes as well. And also the sign of the Ben Adam in the Shemaim, and the entire world seeing the Ben Adam, Yahushua HaMashiach, coming in the clouds and mourning because of the day of YaHuWaH is coming. And as I was sharing with you previously, also it's important to remember that the harvest, the moment when the Ben Adam is going to send the Malachim, the messengers, with the great sound of the trumpet, in order to gather the chosen ones from the 4 corners of the earth, is going to happen in a different moment. It's going to happen after the sign of the Ben Adam. And this is important to keep in mind, because we will see it later on in this series, how this is connected with different events that are gonna happen on the earth. Okay, and this is when the day of YaHuWaH is gonna start. At the moment of the 7th seal is when the day of YaHuWaH is gonna start. So how we can identify basically where we are in this timeline? Important to mention before I forget, because this also we saw it in the previous 2 parts of this series, that the sign of the woman that is going to be fulfilled in this coming September 23 is in this part, and this is totally connected to what Yahushua said about the beginning of the birth pains. So basically, just looking into this, we can see that we are in the middle between the 2nd seal and the 3rd seal, and we see everything that is gonna be kick off together with this sign. the sign of the woman in the Shamayim. But there is a different aspect that I want to share with you that it will help us to understand where we are in this timeline, and also it's going to complement even more our understanding of things that we discussed in the previous two videos. And what I want to share with you is an amazing prophecy that we find in the book of Revelation. And if I didn't mention it before, it's important to say it now. The book of Revelation, if you have not noticed yet, it's not written in a chronological order. As we already saw, for example, the chapter 12 of the book of Revelation, with this amazing sign in the Shamayim, is relating events that are going to happen before the Great Tribulation begins. And this is in the chapter 12 of the book of Revelation. So this prophecy in the chapter 12 is even written after the prophecies about the seals. And we know there is many other prophecies written before this chapter 12 that are not really in the chronological order that I understood in the past, and many people understood in the past. Most probably you were part of that group as well. But it's important that we acknowledge and we recognize that the book of Revelation, the Sefer Hazon, is not written in chronological order. And what I'm going to share with you is going to give us a second witness about what I'm mentioning now. So let's move on and let's read, because this prophecy is related to the message of the three Malachim, the three messengers. And this is written in the book of Revelation chapter 14 from the verse 6 to the verse 13. And this is very important because it gives us an additional indication about where we are in this timeline. So let's move on and we are going to read it together. So it says the following, starting in the verse 6. And I saw another messenger flying in the mid-Shamayim, basically in the first Shamayim, in the one that we can see with our eyes, holding the everlasting good news to announce to those dwelling on the earth, even to every nation and tribe and tongue and people. This is very important because what we see here is a messenger coming from the Shamayim, coming and holding the Besorah, holding the good news, the everlasting good news, to announce to everyone on the earth, to every nation and tribe and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, it says in the verse 7, fear Elohim and give esteem to him, because the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him who made the Shamayim and the earth, and sea and fountains of water. And why this is so important? Because we already saw the key 3.2 when we were reviewing the amazing prophecy of YaHuWaH HaMashiach in Matthew chapter 24, saying that the Besorah, the good news, are going to be proclaimed in all the world. And when this is going to happen, according to YaHuWaH's word, then the end comes. And we see here the fulfillment of this prophecy and being fulfilled in an amazing way, with a messenger that is coming from the Shamayim, holding this everlasting good news in order to announce to all the entire world, to all the inhabitants of the world, to announce the everlasting good news of YaHuWaH. And what is this everlasting good news? Is that we need to fear Elohim, that we need to serve and worship him, that we need to love Elohim because he is the creator of everything. He created the Shamayim and the earth, and he created us. So this is the everlasting good news. This is the everlasting good news that has been existing from the beginning and forever. And this is really important because we know that we have been commanded by Yahushua that we need to bring the good news to others. We need to be light to every nation. We need to be light in this world. But it's not It's not going to be only our responsibility as we see here, because the entire fulfillment of this prophecy is YaHuWaH himself that is going to be fulfilling it through a messenger that is going to announce to all the world the good news. This is very important because this is the first messenger. This is the first message that is coming directly from YaHuWaH through a messenger, through a servant. Let's continue in the verse 8 because this is very important. And it says, and another messenger, this is the second message, is the second messenger, the second Malachim, follows saying, and listen to this, Babel is fallen, Babel is Babylon, Babylon is fallen, the great city, because she has made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her whoring. Important to keep in mind, because we see here in the entire prophecy, we see three messengers. I see three messengers that are coming with a specific message to announce to the entire world. And the first one is with the good news, and the second one is crying out to everybody, to all the inhabitants of the world, that Babel, the Babylon, this great city, has fallen. And the reason that it has fallen because she has made all the nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her whoring. And this is very important to understand, and this is something that we will review in details in coming videos of this series. Just to understand who is Babel. And as I have been sharing with you in the previous videos, when we read and when we study this directly from the word of YaHuWaH, we get to the understanding that when we speak and when the scriptures speak about Babel or Babylon, it's speaking about two women. The first one is the mother, the great Babylon, as it is written in Revelation chapter 17. And the second one is her daughter, the daughter of Babylon, as we saw in the book of Jeremiah chapter 50. So it is important to understand that, and we will review it in great details in the coming videos. But as you will understand in those videos, the one that is going to be announced here that is falling is not the great Babylon, it's not the mother Babylon, it's the daughter of Babel. Okay? Take note of that, because we are not gonna review it in details in this video. It will come in the video when we study about Babel, about the mother and about the daughter. But it's important you take note of this because you will understand better when we study about that. Okay? But why this is so important to highlight it is because of the message of the third Malachim, the third Malach. And this is written in the verse 9. Let's continue. And a third messenger followed them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast and his image, and listen to this, and receives his mark upon his forehead or upon his hand. This is very important because as we saw in the key 7.16 is talking about the mark of the beast. And when this mark of the beast is going to be implemented? After the first beast appear in the scenario of the world. This is very important because somehow just understanding this, we are going to understand when these three Malachim are going to appear in the timeline that we have been building. Let's continue in the verse 10. He also shall drink of the wine of the wrath of Elohim. Who is going to drink? Those ones that are worshipping the beast and his image and receiving the mark, which is poured out, diluted into the cup of his wrath. And he shall be tortured with fire and sulfur before the Kodesh messengers and before the Lamb. And the smoke of their torture goes up forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night, those worshipping the beast and his image. Also, if anyone receives the mark of his name, listen to this. Here is the endurance of the Kodeshim. Here are those guarding the mitzvot, the commandment of Elohim, and the emunah, the belief of Yahushua HaMashiach. It's very important because we see that this messenger is providing a warning to the entire humanity to not worship the beast, not receive the mark. So it is impossible that these three messengers are coming after the Great Tribulation. It is impossible that these three messengers are going to announce to all the inhabitants of the world this important message at the middle or during the Great Tribulation. These messengers are going to provide this important warning to the entire humanity before the Great Tribulation begins. Because it makes no sense that the third messenger is warning the people to not receive the mark if the mark was already implemented. This message needs to come before the mark is going to be forced in the entire humanity. Just understanding that, we can see that these three messengers are going to provide this important warning before the Great Tribulation, or just in the moment when the Great Tribulation is going to start. Let's continue in the verse 13. And I heard a voice out of the Shamayim saying to me, Write, Baruch, blessed are the dead who die in the Master from now on. Yes, says the Ruach, the Spirit, in order that they rest from their labors and their works follow with them. And how this is somehow helping us to understand all of this, because we review already with the key 4.3 when we review the prophecies of the seals in the book of Revelation, that specifically when we saw the fifth seal is that it's going to be a number of chosen ones that are going to die. It's a number of chosen ones that needs to die and needs to be completed. So those are the chosen ones that are going to die during the Great Tribulation. So when we see here this voice that is coming out from the Shamayim saying that Baruch are those that are going to die from now on, it's because this voice is going to be heard before the Great Tribulation begins. So why is so important this, and how this is helping us to understand where we are in the timeline of the end times? Because the important thing here to understand is when the good news, the fulfillment of this prophecy on the words of Yahushua is going to be fulfilled. It's going to be completed. Is when this first messenger is going to come. But it's important to notice the second one, that before the Great Tribulation begins, just understanding all of this, is that the daughter of Babel will fall. The daughter of Babel will fall before the beginning of the great distress. And this is very important to notice. It's very important to keep it in mind, because when we understand who the daughter of Babel is, we will understand how the current events on the world are helping us to see that we are living in the end times. So let's continue and let's review how this timeline is updated with this new revelation, this new light from the word of YaHuWaH. So we see that the three Malachim, the three messengers, are gonna provide their message in the Shamayim. And keep in mind, remember that we are identifying the events in the Shamayim and the events on the earth. So the first one is coming with the Besorah worldwide. And we see here that this is the fulfillment of what Yahushua said in Matthew chapter 24 verse 14, when he said that the Besorah, the good news, are going to be proclaiming all the world. And now the end comes. Important to hear the words of Yahushua, that he's saying that in this moment the end comes. And we saw already that the message, the good news, the everlasting good news, is to fear Elohim. And the second messenger is saying that Babylon is fallen. And the third one is saying that we don't have to receive the mark, that I'm blessed and Baruch are the dead that who died in the Master from now on. So what we see here is basically that the daughter of Babylon, the daughter of Babel, is going to fall before all of this. And what is going to cause all of this is going to be a crisis in the entire society. Because this is totally related to the fourth seal, with the nations rising against nation and reign against reign, with the scarcity of foods, earthquakes and deadly diseases, and also related to the third seal, that as we saw in the previous videos, that this is totally related to a financial or economic collapse or crisis. So we see that the society and the world as we know it today, it's gonna go through a different crisis. And how this is gonna happen, and could be, you can say this is my interpretation, but basically, as we have been seeing throughout the different prophecies, how and why this needs to happen, that the world and the society is gonna be in a crisis, in order to prepare the ground for the dragon that is coming in order to deceive the entire world. Because as soon as the dragon comes to the earth, he's going to come as a messenger of light with a different good news, in order to define how the humanity needs to be established. And it's going to be the dragon, the one, as we saw already in the prophecies, the one that is going to be providing the authority to the beast, the one that is going to be implementing the system of the beast, what is being called throughout many years the New World Order. This is basically what needs to happen in our current society. That's why a crisis is going to come, in order to prepare the ground for the entire world to receive this messenger that is coming from the Shaman, this messenger of light, that is the dragon, as we know, the scripture is revealing to us. That's why we are not going to be deceived. That's why we cannot be deceived if we put our trust here in the Devar of YaHuWaH. So it's important that we connect all these dots, we connect all these keys, because it's the only way that we put our trust and we stay in YaHuWaH always, with the Monah of Yahushua in our hearts. So it's important to see this, because my understanding, according to what we are reading from the Devar of YaHuWaH, that all of these events are going to happen in a short period of time. The dragon coming to the earth, the armies in Jerusalem, the fifth seal, and the abomination of laid waste, the abomination of desolation in Jerusalem. And also these three messengers coming, most probably after the dragon is thrown down to the earth. All of this is going to happen in a short period of time. So it's important that we understand the sequence of events. It's important that we understand the signs, because as we see here, is the sign of the woman, the first one that is going to happen, and after that everything is going to be fulfilled. So including the fall of the daughter of Babylon, as we saw in the previous videos, I was telling you about this. And now we see the confirmation directly from the Devar of YaHuWaH, that the daughter of Babylon, Babel, needs to fall before the beginning of the Great Tribulation. So where we are in this timeline today, we are in the second seal, when we see the fightings and the reports of fightings. And this is totally visible in our eyes, that we see this happening. So, and we are at portas, we are very close to the third seal and to the fourth seal, when we saw that it's going to come the destruction of Moab and Damascus, as we saw in the previous videos. So it's very important that we understand all of this, because the time is very short. And we need to keep watching at all times, as YaHuWaH and Yahushua is also telling us in the book of Revelation, and also in different places on the Devar of YaHuWaH. So it's not difficult to see everything that is happening nowadays, just to confirm where we are in this timeline. So I'm telling you, and I'm sharing with you in this timeline, that we are in the second seal. And the second seal, as we already saw in this series, is that this is totally related to what Yahushua said, that we will hear of fightings and report of fightings. But he also said that the end has not yet come. So it's just to see the news and see how this world has become so crazy with rumors of wars and so on. And I have a short clip that I want to share with you with some evidence that most probably you already know about it. All of us know about it, but it's important to compile all of this with evidence that we can see clearly that we are in the second seals with the words of Yahushua saying about these fightings and report of fightings. So let me share with you. It's impossible not to see how the world is going to a point of no return, how the scripture is being fulfilled, how everything is going to the point of everything that is written for thousands of years is going to be fulfilled in front of our eyes. We see how the world in the last few years has gone moving and moving on to get to this point of a coming war, a coming great conflict, and how we see this is written directly here in this amazing book, directly from the revelation that YaHuWaH has given to us for those that we want to follow His path, follow the step of YaHuWaH HaMashiach. So we need to see and we need to watch at all times. We need to understand what's going on in our days. We need to see how this is totally related to the timeline with the sequence and the events that the scripture, the word of YaHuWaH, is telling us and revealing to us that is going to happen on the end times. We are living in the end times. So we need to prepare ourselves for what is coming, because it's going to happen very soon. And it's not only that, because if we continue seeing in the word of YaHuWaH, we know that Shaul, known as Paul, Shaul was writing in Thessalonians that it was saying, when they say peace and safety, then suddenly destruction comes upon them as a labor pains upon a pregnant woman, and they shall not escape. And we know that this is also related to the sign of the woman. We already studied this passage in great details in the previous videos. So we see what's going on in this world with the peace talk between Palestinians and Israelis, where the US somehow is pushing in order to have this discussion and these talks. We saw what happened with this resolution of the United Nations on December last year, how the John Kerry in that moment gave this tremendous speech pushing for the solution of the two states between Palestinians and Israelis. So we see how this is happening. Even the United Nations celebrating now in this coming 21st of September, the day of the world peace. So we need to open our eyes, we need to open our ears, we need to open our understanding in order to see what's going on in the world today. And it's not only that, because when we talk about the Great Tribulation, sometimes it's very difficult to understand how in our days this great persecution can happen. But if we have our eyes open, it's very easy to see how the ground has been prepared for this persecution, and it's going to be so subtle, it's going to be so smooth that the society is going to be supportive of this persecution and of this distress and tribulation to the people that wants to follow this amazing book, and for the people that want to make a stand for YaHuWaH. Those that are guarding the mitzvot, the commandments, and the belief, the munah of YaHuWaH in the heart. So how we can see that? How this ground has been prepared? And also I created an other clip that is longer than the previous one, but it's important for you to see the message. How we are going to be hated. All of us that are believing in this book and believing in YaHuWaH are going to be hated by all the nations. As YaHuWaH said, he said, don't forget, it is written in YaHuWaH and in the book of John, don't forget that the world has hated me. And in the same way they are going to hate you. Because as I have told you, it says, the servant is not greater than the master. So if they have been hated me and persecuting me, they will hate you and persecute you as well. So this is written, and this is exactly what's going on. And let me share with you the clip, because this is important for you to understand the message that is going on between the lines. So keep attention on what I'm going to share with you, because this is the ground that is being prepared for a few years already. And this is going to be basically how the persecution is going to start.
We must be clear that to defeat the ideology of extremism, we need to deal with all forms of extremism, not just violent extremism. That means banning preachers of hate from coming to our countries. It means proscribing organizations that incite terrorism against people at home and abroad. It means stopping extremists, whether violent or non-violent, from inciting hatred and intolerance in our schools, in our universities, and even sometimes in our prisons. In other words, firm, decisive action to protect and uphold the values of our free and democratic societies. And as has been said, we need to provide an alternative narrative, particularly for these young people. I was particularly struck by what you said, Secretary General, that missiles can kill terrorists, but governance can kill terrorism. And we have to say again and again that this has nothing to do with the religion of Islam, a religion of peace. And we need Muslim country after Muslim country and Muslim leader after Muslim leader to speak out, as the King of Jordan did so clearly today, condemning these people that say they speak in the name of Islam when they do no such thing.
This place of death also is transformed in a place for life, saved lives. A song that leads us to affirm that life will always triumph over the prophets of destruction, over death, and good will always win over bad. Reconciliation and unity will prevail over hate and division. In this place of pain and remembrance, I am full of hope because of the opportunity of joining the leaders representing so many religious traditions that enrich the life of this great city. I hope our presence here sends a powerful sign of our wish to share and reaffirm the wish to be the forces of reconciliation, forces of peace, of justice in this community and throughout the whole world. In differences, in discrepancies, it is possible to live in a world of peace. In the face of any attempt to make us all similar, it is possible and it is necessary to meet together with our different tongues, different cultures, religions, and raise our voice against anyone who would like to prevent that, because together today we have been invited to say no to any attempt to make us all the same, and to say yes to our differences, accepting and in reconciliation. For this, we need to throw away these feelings of hate and revenge and rancor. We know this is only possible through a gift of heaven, here in this place of remembrance, each one of us in their way, but together. I propose a moment of silence and prayer. Let us ask of the Lord the gift of joining the case of peace. Peace in our homes, in our families, in our schools, in our communities. Peace in all the places in which war seems to be endless. Peace in the faces of the people who have only seen pain. Peace in this wide world that God has given us as our home, as a home for us all and for all. Only peace.
Terrorism is an evil that knows no boundary, has no religion, no race, and no values. Indeed, we live in a world where pressures of hate and violence are threatening the fabric of our society. As young dynamic citizens of Kenya and as members of the African society, you will need to be watchful of those who spread radical ideologies and be equally condemning of those who give shelter to terrorists and use them as political instruments. Youth can also play an important role in building a counter-narrative to extremist ideologies.
To defeat ISIL and organizations like it, we must defeat this ideology in all its forms. As evidence emerges about the backgrounds of those convicted of terrorist offences, it is clear that many of them were initially influenced by preachers who claim not to encourage violence, but whose worldview can be used as a justification for it. We know this worldview, the peddling of lies, that 9/11 was somehow a Jewish plot, or that the 7/7 London attacks were staged. The idea that Muslims are persecuted all over the world as a deliberate act of Western policy. The concept of an inevitable clash of civilizations. We must be clear, to defeat the ideology of extremism, we need to deal with all forms of extremism, not just violent extremism. For governments, there are some obvious ways we can do this. We must ban preachers of hate from coming to our countries. We must prescribe organizations that incite terrorism against people at home and abroad. We must work together to take down illegal online material like the recent videos of ISIL murdering hostages. And we must stop the so-called non-violent extremists from inciting hatred and intolerance in our schools, our universities, and yes, even our prisons. Of course, some will argue that this is not compatible with free speech and intellectual inquiry. But I ask you, would we sit back and allow right-wing extremists, Nazis or Ku Klux Klansmen to recruit on our university campuses? No. So we shouldn't stand by and just allow any form of non-violent extremism. We need to argue that prophecies of a global war of religion, pitting Muslims against the rest of the world, these things are nonsense. We need Muslims and their governments around the world to reclaim their religion from these sick terrorists, as so many are doing and quite rightly doing today. We all need help, and to help them with programs that channel young people away from these poisonous ideologues. And we need the strongest possible international focus on tackling this ideology, which is why here at the United Nations, the United Kingdom is calling for a new special representative on extremism. But fighting extremism will never be enough. Communism wasn't defeated simply by pointing out its flaws, but by showing that the alternative, economic freedoms, democracy, the rule of law, these things could build a better society and a better world. Young people need to see the power of a different, better, more open, more democratic path. The 20th century taught us the vital role of representative and accountable governments in offering their people opportunity, hope and dignity.
Who labored tirelessly that this nation under God might have a new birth of freedom. Building a future of freedom requires love of the common good and cooperation in a spirit of subsidiarity and solidarity. All of us are quite aware of and deeply worried by the disturbing social and political situation of the world today. Our world is increasingly a place of violent conflict, hatred, and brutal atrocities, committed even in the name of God and of religion. We know that no religion is immune from forms of individual delusion or ideological extremism. This means that we must be especially attentive to every type of fundamentalism, whether religious or of any other kind. A delicate balance is required to combat violence perpetrated in the name of a religion, an ideology, or an economic system, while also safeguarding religious freedom, intellectual freedom, and individual freedoms. But there is another temptation which we must especially guard against. The simplistic reductionism which sees only good or evil, or, if you will, the righteous and sinners. The contemporary world, with its open wounds, which affect so many of our brothers and sisters, demands that we confront every form of polarization, which would divide it into these two camps. We know that in the attempt to be feed of enemy without, we can be tempted to feed the enemy within. To imitate the hatred and violence of tyrants and murderers is the best way to take their place. That is something which you, as people, reject. Our response must instead be one of hope and healing, of peace and justice. We are asked to summon the courage and the intelligence to resolve today's many geopolitical and economic crises. Even in the developed world, the effects of unjust structures and actions are all too apparent. Our efforts must aim at restoring hope, righting wrongs, maintaining commitments, and thus promoting the well-being of individuals and of peoples. We must move forward together as one in a renewed spirit of fraternity and solidarity, cooperating generously for the common good.
We see faith inspiring people to lift up one another, to feed the hungry, and care for the poor, and comfort the afflicted, and make peace where there is strife. We see faith driving us to do right. But we also see faith being twisted and distorted, used as a wedge, or worse, sometimes used as a weapon. From a school in Pakistan to the streets of Paris, we have seen violence and terror perpetrated by those who profess to stand up for faith, their faith. Profess to stand up for Islam, but in fact are betraying it. We see ISIL, a brutal, vicious death cult that, in the name of religion, carries out unspeakable acts of barbarism, terrorizing religious minorities like the Yazidis, subjecting women to rape as a weapon of war, and claiming the mantle of religious authority for such actions. We see sectarian war in Syria, the murder of Muslims and Christians in Nigeria, religious war in the Central African Republic, a rising tide of anti-Semitism and hate crimes in Europe, so often perpetrated in the name of religion. And so how do we, as people of faith, reconcile these realities? The profound good, the strength, the tenacity, the compassion and love that can flow from all of our faiths, operating alongside those who seek to hijack religious for their own murderous ends. Humanity's been grappling with these questions throughout human history. And lest we get on our high horse and think this is unique to some other place, remember that during the Crusades and the Inquisition, people committed terrible deeds in the name of Christ. In our home country, slavery and Jim Crow all too often was justified in the name of Christ. Michelle and I returned from India, an incredible, beautiful country, full of this magnificent diversity, but a place where in past years religious faiths of all types have, on occasion, been targeted by other peoples of faith simply due to their heritage and their beliefs. Acts of intolerance that would have shocked Gandhiji, the person who helped to liberate that nation. So this is not unique to one group or one religion. There is a tendency in us, a sinful tendency that can pervert and distort our faith. In today's world, when hate groups have their own Twitter accounts and bigotry can fester in hidden places in cyberspace, it can be even harder to counteract such intolerance. But God compels us to try. And in this mission, I believe there are a few principles that can guide us, particularly those of us who profess to believe. And first, we should start with some basic humility. I believe that the starting point of faith is some doubt. Not being so full of yourself and so confident that you are right and that God speaks only to us and doesn't speak to others. That God only cares about us and doesn't care about others. That somehow we alone are in possession of the truth. Our job is not to ask that God respond to our notion of truth. Our job is to be true to Him, His word and His commandments. And we should assume humbly that we're confused and don't always know what we're doing, and we're staggering and stumbling towards Him. And have some humility in that process. And that means we have to speak up against those who would misuse His name to justify oppression or violence or hatred with that fierce certainty. No God condones terror. No grievance justifies the taking of innocent lives. or the oppression of those who are weaker or fewer in number. And so as people of faith, we are summoned to push back against those who try to distort our religion, any religion, for their own nihilistic ends. And here at home and around the world, we will constantly reaffirm that fundamental freedom of religion, the right to practice our faith how we choose, to change our faith if we choose, to practice no faith at all if we choose, and to do so free of persecution and fear and discrimination. There's wisdom in our founders writing in those documents that helped found this nation the notion of freedom of religion, because they understood the need for humility.
We are not called to follow man. We are called to follow YaHuWaH and His Word. And the only man that we need to follow is Yahushua HaMashiach, the Son of Elohim. This is what is written here. So all of us that we want to make a stand for YaHuWaH, and for all of us that we want to follow this amazing book, we are going to be called preacher of hates. Even this video, even me that I'm talking to you and sharing with you this truth, I'm going to be tagged as a preacher of hate. Basically, we are going to be considered as terrorists. Can you imagine what's going to happen with the two witnesses? That's why it's written in the Bible of YaHuWaH, in the book of Revelation, that the king and the sovereigns of the earth are going to be so happy when the two witnesses are dead. They're going to exchange gifts between themselves, because they finally got rid of the message of these preachers. So the ground is already prepared. The ground is already prepared in order to persecute those that are going to be considered that are intolerant to the current society, those that are not preaching love, those that are not in solidarity with the rest. Because they are leading the world astray. They are providing a total different good news, not the good news that are here. They are providing a total different message, a distorted message. And it's your responsibility and my responsibility to read this book in order to understand what's the real message that is written here. Not to believe to those liars, not to believe to those false prophets, that the only thing they want to do is to lead us astray, instead of lead us in the path, in the way of YaHuWaH. So everything is prepared. If we don't see, we are not able, if we don't want to see it, we are not going to be able to see what's going on. It's just a matter to open our eyes and see that everything is prepared for what is coming. It is written, and we saw it as well in the words of Shaul, that before the man of lawlessness is going to be revealed, first is coming the falling away. This is the apostasia. And if you look for this word, there is a second place in the book of Acts, in the book of Maaseh, where this word is used as well, the falling away. And it's totally related to the writings of Moshe, to the Torah. So basically, this falling away is totally related to the path of YaHuWaH, to His commandments. And we see this men talking that those that misuse His name, YaHuWaH's name, and His commandments, providing a total distorted message to the people. that we need to love each other. For sure we need to love each other. But we need to use the love that YaHuWaH is putting in our hearts and the love that He is teaching us in His Word. It is written in Matthew 24, verse 12. And because of the increasing lawlessness in the breaking of the Torah of YaHuWaH, that the love of many shall become cold. And we see how these men are talking in order to break the Torah of YaHuWaH, talking that it's a wrong thing to do this separation between the righteous and the sinners. And this is exactly what the Devar of YaHuWaH is teaching us. Not because we need to do this separation, it's because it's providing us the light in order to understand that we need to go and become righteous in order to be part of His people. This is everything that is written here, that we need to follow the righteousness of YaHuWaH. This is the light that is in this book. And we see how the world is going totally opposite to the way of YaHuWaH nowadays. It is written in Lucas chapter 17. This is the book of Luke, chapter 17, verse 26 to 30. It says the following: And as it came to be in the days of Noah, so also shall it be in the days of the son of Adam, the Ben Adam. They were eating, they were drinking, they were marrying, they were given in marriage, until the day that Noah went into the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all. And likewise, as it came to be in the day of Lot, they were eating, they were drinking, they were buying, they were selling, they were planting, they were building. But on the day Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and sulfur from Shamayim and destroyed all. It shall be the same in the day the Ben Adam is revealed. We see how everything was happening in the day of Lot, and actually, let's read it in the book of Kephavet. This is 2 Peter. Kephavet, 2 Peter, chapter 2, verse 5 to 8. It says, and did not spare the world of old. He's talking about YaHuWaH that did not spare the world of old, but preserved Noah, a proclaimer of righteousness, and 7 others, bringing in the flood on the world of the wicked, and having reduced to ashes the cities of Sodom and Amorah, condemned them to destruction, having made them an example to those who afterward would live wickedly, and rescued righteous Lot, who was oppressed with the indecent behavior of the lawless. For day after day that righteous man, dwelling among them, tortured his righteous being by seeing and hearing their lawless works. And we see how the world is moving on, how the countries has been approving the gay marriage in all over the world, how the homosexualism and all this community, the LGBTQ community, is increasing and gaining popularity, and to the eyes, before the eyes of the society, it is normal and good to do this. And we see how they are penetrating and going even more, even touching the children, even going closer to the children in order to show themselves as a normal thing. And as we see here, this is totally forbidden in the Devar of YaHuWaH. For sure, we are not called to preach violence. We don't need to take the judgment in our hands, because it's only one judge, and it is written here that this is YaHuWaH, and He has been assigned one man in order to judge the world, and this is Yahushua HaMashiach. We are not called to do violence. We are not called to go against the society, because it's also part of what is written, what is going to happen. The only thing we need to do is we need to preserve our lives, and we need to walk in our lives, we need to walk in the light of YaHuWaH. This is what we need to do. Because it's YaHuWaH himself, that's why he has a day of wrath. Because he's coming in order to clean and cleanse the earth, in order to restore his creation. This is why he's coming with wrath, in order to eliminate all the sin, all the lawlessness. So it's important we understand the message, and it's very important that we understand and we see the times that we are living. As we were seeing, and let me show you again. This is the timeline, and it's impossible not to see that we are here between the second and the third seal. Everything is happening before our own eyes. So it's so important that we become and start following the path of YaHuWaH. We need to be right with YaHuWaH. We need to follow his path. We need to do what is right before his eyes, not what is right before our own eyes. It is written that we are not of this world. So we need to live in the word of YaHuWaH, in his kingdom, in his malchut. This is the only way that we are going to be preserved. So the last thing that I want to share with you is an important prophecy, because this is also a witness of the day that we are living. And there are many people that are saying that this is not right to understand it like that, but we need to let the word of YaHuWaH to speak by itself. That's the only way that we are going to understand this prophecy. And this is written in the book of YaHuWaH, chapter 24. And we are going to complete this study with this prophecy. YaHuWaH, chapter 24. Verse 32 to 34. And Yahushua said, "And learn this parable from the fig tree. When its branch has already become tender and puts forth leaves, you know that the summer is near. So you also, when you see all this, know that he is near at the doors. Truly I said to you, this generation shall by no means pass away until all this takes place." So he is giving us this parable of the fig tree, just to understand what generation he is talking about. Because he said that when, in the same way that the fig tree, when the branch has already become tender and put forth leaves, because the summer is near. So when the fig tree blossom, is that generation that are going to live when YaHuWaH and Yahushua will come again to the earth. So we need to understand who is the fig tree. And it's the Devar of YaHuWaH who give us the answer. And this is in the book of Yirmiyahu. And this is going to be part also of a different study that I need to share with you about the three main trees. The fig tree, the vine, and the olive tree. Yirmiyahu chapter 24, verse 1 to 8. And it says the following. YaHuWaH showed me, and look, there were 2 baskets of figs set before the Hechal of YaHuWaH. After Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, had exiled Jehonyahu, son of Jehoiakim, sovereign of YaHuWaH, and the heads of YaHuWaH, with the craftsmen and smiths from Jerusalem, and had brought them to Babel. So he's talking about the captivity of the kingdom of YaHuWaH, the southern kingdom, the house of YaHuWaH, the captivity to Babel. So it says in the verse 2, one basket had very good figs, like the figs that are first ripe, and the other basket had very spoiled figs, which could not be eaten, they were so spoiled. And YaHuWaH said to me, what do you see, Yirmiyahu? And I said, figs, the good figs, very good, and the spoiled, very spoiled, which could not be eaten, they are so spoiled. Again the word of YaHuWaH came to me, saying, thus said YaHuWaH, the Elohim of Israel, like these good figs, so do I acknowledge the exiles of YaHuWaH, whom I have sent out of this place for their own good into the land of the Kasdim. Is comparing YaHuWaH, the people of the kingdom of YaHuWaH, the southern kingdom, the house of YaHuWaH, the ones that went in captivity to Babel. He's comparing them as the good figs. And let's continue the verse 6. And I shall set my eyes on them for good, and shall bring them back to this land. And I shall build them and not pull them down, and shall plant them and not pluck them up. And I shall give them a heart to know me, that I am YaHuWaH, and they shall be my people, and I shall be their Elohim, for they shall turn back to me with all their heart. And as the spoiled figs that could not be eaten because they are so spoiled, for thus said YaHuWaH, so do I give up Tzidkiyahu, the sovereign of YaHuWaH, his heads, the rest of Jerusalem, who remain in this land, and those who dwell in the land of Mizraim. The spoiled figs were the people that remained in the house of YaHuWaH, in the land of YaHuWaH. Both groups belongs to the house of YaHuWaH, to the southern kingdom, and both groups are compared to the figs and to the fig tree. So when Yahushua is telling us the parable of the fig tree, he is referring to the house of YaHuWaH. And who is the house of YaHuWaH? Because we know that the Israel is composed by 12 tribes. 10 tribes are totally lost for so many years, and they were scattered on the four corners of the earth. But in specific tribes and a specific group of people, just 2 tribes, Yehudah and Benjamin, and part of the Levites that were living within the 12 tribes, remained in the house of Yehudah. Those are the fig tree. Those are being compared here in the Devar of Yehudah with the fig. So when this fig tree began to blossom, to bloom, and we know this, basically, this happened on the 29th of November of 1947, when the United Nations, the General Assembly of the United Nations, adopted the resolution, the UN Resolution 181, when they accepted the creation of 3 states, the states of Israel, the Jewish state, the Arab state, the Palestinian one, and also they decided on a special regime for the city of Jerusalem. There you can see it in the picture, that they decided in that moment to create 3 states. And why this is so important? Because when all the community, all the politicians in the international talks are talking about the implementation or the establishment of the 2-state solution, they are pushing for this resolution, the 181, in order to create 2 states, the Palestinian and the Jewish state. But also, hidden between this push is also to put a special regime in the city of Jerusalem. And if you remember, in the prophecy it says that Jerusalem is going to be under the dominion of the nations, of the Gentiles. It's going to be under the dominion of an international regime, like the city of Vatican. And do you know who's going to be the one in charge of this city? I have no doubt that it's going to be the United Nations that are going to be ruling over Jerusalem. So it's important to understand all of this that is happening in our world. That was the speech from John Kerry 9 months ago, pushing for this two-state solution. This is the same thing that we have been seeing throughout these months, that has been pushed so hard in order to have peace and to have these two-state solution in place. So we know that the house of YaHuWaH was scattered around the 70 of the Common Era. And we have this resolution. So when Yahushua was talking about a generation, how long a generation does live according to the scripture? And the answer we find that here in Tehillim. This is in the book of Psalms. This is in the chapter 90 of Psalms. Verse 10. And it says the following: the days of our lives are 70 years, or if due to strength, 80 years. Yet the best of them is but toil and exertion, for it is soon cut off, and we fly away. So basically, the Devar of YaHuWaH is telling us that a generation is 70 years and maximum 80 years. So if we add up this period of time, basically what we see that in 29 of November of 1947, if we add these 70 years, we end up in 2017. Is the 70 years for that generation. So this is an additional witness that the Jewish people started to come back to the promised land. It's when the fig tree started to blossom. It's when this fig tree and this parable from Yahushua is started to become a reality. And this generation has not passed away until all of this has been fulfilled and the Ben Adam returned. A generation 70 years to 80 years. This is the fulfillment. This year is the fulfillment for the 70 years of that generation. So it's important that we consider all of this, because we cannot have any doubt in our heart, because it's happening all over the world. All the prophecies of this amazing book are becoming true. So it's time for us that we are not worried of the matter of this life. Our heart, our mind needs to be seeking the righteousness and the Malchut, the kingdom of YaHuWaH, because everything else will come directly from Him. So it's time that we fulfill our purpose to bring light, the light of YaHuWaH, to this world. No matter of the persecution, no matter of the hate, no matter that we are going to be considered preacher of hates, we need to bring the light of YaHuWaH. So it's my prayer to YaHuWaH that He protect us all. It's my prayer to YaHuWaH that He guide us our steps. It's my prayer to YaHuWaH that He establish our steps and guide us on His way in these last days. I hope this message is clear. I hope this video and this study has been clear for you. It's important that you pray for all the family out there. It's important that you pray for me and you pray for others, because that's the way that the Ruach HaKodesh will guide us and will protect us and will continue showing us the truth and the light of YaHuWaH. Toda Rabah for following this video. Toda Rabah for following all these studies and for your support and your prayers. It's my prayer to YaHuWaH to guide you in the way, to establish your steps, and to guide you in everything you do. Thank you again, and May YaHuWaH be with you, and actually may YaHuWaH be with us all in these last days. See you in the next video. Shalom.